building a plant holder. Hi, I'm Jim Vanderscaff and welcome to my shop. I see my job here as providing you woodworking education in an easily understandable and usable manner. I will be delighted if this helps you improve and move to a higher skill level. If you're new here, please click on the subscribe button down below and ring the bell. This will alert you to the next video that's coming so you won't miss anything new. If reference is made to any materials or techniques that can be found elsewhere, I will include this information below this video. Also, you can add your comments below the video and find others' questions or comments there too. Thanks. Let's get to work. Hi, I'm Jim Vanderscaff. Welcome to my shop. I just wanted to show you what I've been making, and the subject of this video is plant holders. This is one that's made out of cherry. I'll show you another one in just a minute. Here's the plant holder in action. This happens to be made out of poplar, and the clivia plant is contained in a beautiful brass container and just a clay pot on the inside, but you can see how it's positioned. I make these in a number of different sizes and shapes and heights. And I just wanted to show you a bit more about the process of building these flower pot holders. You can see one that's finished here. It's basically two pieces that slide together. They require joinery on the leg pieces to the cross piece. What I've done is put floating tenons in there. I'll show you that process. And then I cut in the middle of one up and one down so they slide together nicely like this. A flower pot, as you saw in the previous video, sits on top of here. So what I've done is marked all the pieces for one of these. These are different dimensions. Let me give you the dimensions back on this one so you can get an idea of how big it is. It's 24 inches tall. The pot sits, it's made so that it can easily accommodate 11 inches wide. It's 11 1/4. The holder is 6 inches down from the top. And then I've made these out of 1 7/8 wide boards. These happen to be 2.5 inches wide. So laying these out, you can see the pieces for another one. This is a smaller one. This is going to be 16 inches tall. It's 5 inches from the top. I've marked the width of each of these boards on here. I did it by lining all up and then using a square to make my marks on here like this, and mark the pieces that were wide. You can see what I did is then take the floating tenon, and because we have to mark that, you can probably see the marks on here a little bit better now. There's the width of the board and then the width of the floating tenon, and I just marked that by eyesight. So I've got those 4 pieces. Then we had the 2 cross pieces that are shown here, and in the next segment I'll show you how I cut those on the table saw. So this segment just shows how I cut these 2 cross pieces. First of all, I lined them up, made a mark on this piece here, the width of the board, because they're going to be sliding together like this. And then what I did was adjust the table saw so the depth is just right on here, and then put the 2 pieces together on my miter gauge, adjusted the fence so that the cut would just be made on one side like that. And then I started to make a series of cuts, first of all the way on the other side, and I can easily do that because I've got an insert in this table saw that exactly shows the width of that blade. So it's very easy to line this up and then run it through. And then I just cut out successive passes like this to cut out the remainder of that material. So I wanted to show you how I do the joinery for these floating tenons that join the two pieces of the cross piece and the upright. And you can see here where I've made the marks, and that's where the floating tenon will go, and that's just the width of the tenon. It's a 1/4 of an inch thick, and it's I think I made it 1.5 inches long, maybe 1 3/4 inches. And what I've got in the router is a 1/4 inch upcut bit. Now, I've marked the extents of both of these limits of the router bit, because I'm going to slide this back and forth and plunge route it. And this is the extent of either side of that cutting surface. So what I want to do is bring it down like this, and then I'll plunge route it and cut that hole all the way through, and I'll show you how I do it. The beauty of an upcut bit, they're more expensive, but they do something that a straight bit just couldn't do. It's able to plunge into the wood and also cut sideways. And so I'll demonstrate how I do that. So there's the cut, and you can see that floating tenon goes in there just nicely. It'll get a good glue surface for that, and I'll demonstrate how I do this one as well. It's a little bit trickier because you can't hold it as well, but if you're careful with it, you can accomplish that too. So you can get a nice finished cut that way. The upcut bit with my dust collection system leaves virtually no dust in the area, and it's really a nice way to do these. Alternate ways to do it is you can drill them, you can do them by hand, you can do it with a mortising machine, but I find these upcut bits on my router with dust collection is simply the best way to do it. One last task we have is to cut the bevel on these legs, and I'll show you what I do. I've got a leg tapering jig that I made some time ago. You can see it's got the ability to move this piece on top with a screw down here, and also on the other end I can move that piece back and forth so I can size various legs. What I've done is set this up. You can see the bevel is laid out on this piece. So I've set this up with a stop back here so that it can't go any further, and then it's going to cut right on that line. You can see the blade, the table saw blade is going to cut right on that line. I clamp it down and then just feed it through. I'll do that and come back in a later segment. You can see that now I've got the bevels cut on all the long portions of each one of the legs, and now I need to cut a bevel on the shorter portion. I can't do that with my leg cutting jig because it just can't be adjusted that far. So I'll take it over to the bandsaw and I'll cut it on the bandsaw. That's a rather straightforward process, so I didn't feel the need to film it. One last task, we need to round over all the pieces that we made. We got the 4 legs, we got the 2 cross pieces, and we're just going to do that with a round over bit that I've got set in the router. Okay, so we got all the pieces rounded, and if you notice, but I didn't indicate, that I moved the piece from right to left on the top of the router. And the reason is that then bites into the wood in the proper manner. It doesn't force it away and leave an uneven surface. One other thing I do with these floating tenons, you can see they got grooves in them. I just cut that on the bandsaw on both sides. That allows the glue to go in better. So now it's just a matter of assembling these. And we do a fit up first before we glue, and then to make sure that everything is going to go together properly. What you don't want to find out is that you've made a mistake in alignment or something like that, and it's too late to correct it when you're in the middle of a glue up. So I always do a fit up first, and then make the glue up and put clamps on it, and wait for the requisite period of time, at least 2 hours, before I do any final sanding and finishing. Glue up and clamping phase. You can see that I assembled one of these. I've actually assembled both of them, but I'm just showing you one that's been glued up and clamped in place and made sure that it stays flat. So after waiting 2 or 3 hours for the glue to dry, I'll sand these down and apply a finish. In this case, I use a wipe-on poly. And wipe-on poly, I don't buy it in the can that way. What I do is, I'll show you. It's a simple process. I just use mineral spirits and Minwax urethane. I mix them 1-to-1. In other words, 1 part of mineral spirits to 1 part of urethane. That makes it easily wipeable. That works, and I put 3 or 4 coats on and sand lightly between coats. Thanks for watching. Come back for another video.